And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is part 1 of The Jacksons. Thank you for listening. So, this week, you were in a thrift store and you found the... Why don't you tell everyone what we're reading?
A very large book about Michael Jackson, written by Jermaine Jackson, his brother.
Yeah, interesting, because everything up till now has been autobiography. No, Mommy Dearest isn't an autobiography.
No, true.
Yeah, no.
And
good.
it very much is about Michael, because he really he misses a lot out about his own life.
Yeah, I know. I kind of felt for him a couple of times, thinking, and I felt I wanted to know more about Jermaine. Yeah. Oh, before we start, I always ask you how you feel about a person before you start reading the book. Am I asking you how you feel about Jermaine or how you feel about Michael? It should be Jermaine, strictly. Yeah. Let's do both. This is our podcast. We can do what we want.
Okay, yes.
How did you feel about Jermaine
I've got
Jackson?
strong feelings on both of them, because I absolutely loved Michael Jackson 100% with all my heart. Massive fan. Went to see a Dangerous tour, changed my life. But yeah, I loved it. Love his music. He's amazing. And Jermaine was my second favourite.
No kidding.
Well, no, Janet.
I was about to say.
That's a different stratosphere. Of the Jacksons, he's my favourite. And I've seen the Jacksons, in the last few years. I saw him in Vegas.
No kidding.
And watched him on Big Brother and just thought he was a lovely man. Just really endeared. I was very endeared to him. Yeah. What are your opinions?
Jermaine, to me, is the only other Jackson I know other than Michael or Janet. I think he's had a couple of good tunes. And again, I watched him on Celebrity Big Brother and just thought, gosh, he's just a really, really lovely person, as I imagine all of those Jackson brothers to be. Michael Jackson, pedo.
That is the first and foremost. But before all that, did you think he was amazing?
I've been troubled because of the various allegations over decades. Yeah. And I kind of came to the conclusion that he probably was guilty. And that's prevented me, actually, from being a fan. I have to be honest about that.
You weren't a massive fan before, really?
I didn't buy his albums. I got a bit, but I liked his music. And I really appreciated the effort and artistry that he put into his music videos. I mean, wow. So, you know what? As a worldwide icon, I think he's brilliant, but not going to lie, completely sullied by things that have happened in his private life, which we will talk about.
Yes.
This is how I feel before I read this book, okay?
Yes. Oh, don't forget, I mean, I was the last to believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Before that, I felt that he was being hung. I felt he was being crucified by the media. I stuck by him forever.
I know you did, because I observed all of that and how you kind of did come to a bit of a realisation that actually there may be some truth in it.
No,
and how
that, to believe it.
Well, like any of his massive fans, and many of them still don't believe it. And I think we should start talking.
Yeah, I know. We can't just make this a debate about that. Yeah, because this is a book about his whole life, and it's utterly fascinating.
Oh yeah, and it's written by his brother so beautifully
and brilliantly,
and intelligently, and so thoughtful.
Yeah, I know. It's such a well-written book.
Yeah.
Must make this note again. Yeah. We have banned ourselves from talking to each other about this book. This is the first time we've been allowed to talk about it. Yet again, I don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what I'm going to say.
We were frantic just a minute ago.
God, we don't even know what else to talk about. Oh, what's the weather like?
Yeah, and now we've sat down and pressed record, and now we can finally talk, because I have so much to say.
Yeah.
So where should we start at the beginning? Yeah. So I tell you the weirdest thing for me about this book.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine a time before Michael Jackson and the Jacksons were famous.
Yeah.
It almost was a bit like, is this real? Yeah. They're not famous at this point.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
They've always been famous, like world
in our
famous.
Lifetimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really weird to think about them as a huge family in a tiny house being regular boys.
Yeah. You know so much about them, but hearing it being told from within the bedroom is completely different.
Yeah.
So it's not just on a documentary. It's like, how did it actually feel? 3 bunk beds, one above the other, which I didn't know. This the details, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And 2 of them head to toe, another 2 head to toe, and 1 on their own. The 2 parents in another room, and then 2 of them, the oldest Rebe and another one, Latoya, on the sofa bed. And then Randy and Janet come along and join them on the sofa bed. I mean, my God.
Of course, like the beginning of this book, Janet doesn't even exist.
No, she doesn't exist for ages. Yeah.
I was so fascinated by that. Of course, at some point, they weren't famous. Nobody knew who they were. No. But I didn't realise. I don't know why I didn't realise. I guess because their personas are so glittery and otherworldly. It's hard to realise they were anything other than super rich.
Yeah. I know, I've always known they were poor. But what I didn't realise, actually, big revelation, is how insular they always were. Almost like a Mormon family or something. And they weren't Mormons, they were Jehovah's. Which I suppose I did have a friend at school who was Jehovah, and because of the not celebrating Christmas and birthdays, and she wasn't allowed over to people's houses.
Wow.
Maybe it is the thing that you keep yourselves
in the religion
amongst your own. But I didn't know that they were so isolated, sort of.
I think when there's enough of you, it's easier to be insular, because there was 9 of them in the end, right? Just children, which means there's 11 people in that house. But
they didn't splinter off. They didn't. A couple of them go to mates' houses. They had to go to school and come home and stay together at weekends, and they were really a unit, really isolated before they ever even got into music. That's changed my perception of them.
Right.
Like a slightly odd, I'm putting that in inverted commas, family to most people who have parties and friends over and all that.
Sure. They were just like a
always separate.
I get the comparison, because at the head of that household there was a terrifying leader, if you like, kind of keeping them all in line, keeping them together. And actually, you know what Jermaine does say, that his dad kept them under such a strict line because they lived in a gang neighbourhood. And the most common thing for young black boys of a certain age would be to go and join the gangs and run drugs and stuff. And he actually attributes his dad's strictness being the defining factor in why they never ended up in gangs.
Yeah, I know, that's really poignant, that bit. And he also said that a lot of families in that neighbourhood had absent fathers. So at least they had a father.
Do you know what? Honestly, I think they'd have been better off without a father.
I know, it's that. You think, oh, that's really nice. That's seeing the positive amongst so much negative.
Yeah, I know. I think there are people listening to this who don't know what the Jacksons' dad was like, so let's tell them.
Go on, go for it.
I mean, he was just a brutal disciplinarian. He wouldn't just hit them. He was very sadistic.
Oh, really?
There used to be a tree outside their house, and if one of them was due for a beating, he'd get them to go to the tree and pick off the branch that they wanted to be beat with. I mean, that's beyond really being
dark. And then sometimes it wasn't big enough, so they'd go and choose again and again and again. No, it was pretty dark.
Do you know what? It upset me reading that bit.
Did it?
Yeah, especially, I tell you why. Hang on, I'm going to see if I can find it. I put it down.
But he actually even said that when the red mist is cleared. So it was anger. It wasn't, But you don't take it out on your tiny children, do you? No. Oh, it's another time, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not good.
Do you know what? He used to beat them with a belt until they had welts. Jermaine admits that when he was being beaten, that he would scream out for God for it to stop, right? And that just makes you think, if you're a parent hitting your little boy and they're screaming out to God for it to stop, at what point do you not stop? At what point do you keep it going?
And then mum screaming for him to stop because he's going too far. That proves he was going too far.
I mean, he probably hit her as well. Let's face it. He sounds like a right. I think those kids would have been better off without that dad. The way Jermaine talks about his dad in retrospect, I actually find quite shocking, because he's so forgiving.
I know. I mean, they wouldn't have been the Jacksons. They wouldn't have been rich, but
here's the thing about that: the way Jermaine can completely forgive his dad and stick up for his dad and say things like, oh no, what was written in the press about our dad being abusive, actually it wasn't like that. We love our dad, he's forgiven him, and he said the press called him a monster. Well, he wasn't a monster. It's like, Jermaine, yes, he was a monster. This is the way you've processed it in your head. That man was an absolute monster to his children, and you deserved to grow up without him, actually. And
he made them successful, though.
Yeah, he did, but at what price? Michael's dead.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But then how many others would have been dead if they'd have gone along a different path?
If they'd gone into the gang. Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
It's hard.
Here's the thing that I take from Jermaine and how he speaks about his dad now for this book. Let's not forget he's writing a book, so you think about how you want this said to the public. Well, do you know what he said, that what the press said about his dad wasn't entirely how it was, but Jermaine has written in this book how his dad used to beat him until he was screaming out for God.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awful. How his dad used to hit them with belts until they had welts. So that wasn't in the public domain. This happened in your house. So you're actually telling us how bad it was.
Yeah.
I'm reading this book and thinking your dad's a monster. But in this book you're saying, all that happened, but my dad wasn't a monster. Yes, you've already told me he's a monster.
What he's telling us is he's accepted it, but he's spelling out exactly what his dad did. And to us, it sounds like a monster.
Yes, but okay, let me tell you how this changed the book for me.
Yeah.
And this happens quite at the beginning. I'm thinking, if you can tell us your dad did this, and you were that understanding and that loyal, I think you're an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And I think everything you've got to tell us about Michael now, you're doing it from that same place of love, that same place of loyalty. And I respect that point. So much. Yeah. I think he's a wonderful brother. I think he's possibly the best brother in the world. I know. But having told us what your dad did and saying, but he wasn't a monster, okay, then you're going to temper everything about your brother.
I came to that conclusion early on because, he doesn't even have proper access to his brother for half the book.
Yeah, right.
As soon as he's gone solo, which is fairly early on.
Yeah.
He's got this whole other life. And he says things like, he really made friends with Diana Ross when they did The Wiz. Made friends with Quincy Jones. Already, I've read loads about that time, and he was going to Studio 54 with Diana Ross, with Liza Minnelli and all those people, and it was the first time he'd ever experienced freedom away from his family and going out and going to the disco, and he really made friends with Andy Warhol. Grace Jones talks about this and she says in another life she thinks that Michael Jackson and Andy Warhol would have got married because they got on that well. Really? They just loved each other.
Wow.
And all that stuff, because they were there. Jermaine wasn't there, and he wasn't really, from that sort of time on, he was on the periphery of Michael's life. Yeah. And he can only say what he thinks he sees or what he's known. And he's a really good researcher. He's done loads, hasn't he? He's read loads of biographies, got loads of quotes. It's really good. And he says what he feels, and he talks about the brother he knows from family reunions. But there's so much more to Michael's life that he has no idea about.
Yeah. Well, he's got all of his other brothers and sisters that I'm sure are filling him in.
But they aren't there either.
They aren't there either.
Once he got out. He wanted out. He wanted some independence.
But as well, I totally get from this book that Jermaine loves his brother, and he's relaying everything to us through rose-tinted spectacles.
Yeah, and that he really believes.
And I don't say that in a way to talk badly of him. I think it makes him one of the nicest people in the world. He's changed my mind about a lot of things, I have to say.
Same here.
But we'll get to that. Let's go back to the Jackson.
Yeah, it's all right. Okay, the good times when they were getting whipped and starting a band.
So their dad had a guitar.
Yeah.
They broke it.
Yeah.
He beat them up.
Yeah.
And then he heard them playing the guitar and said, you're quite good at the guitar, let's start a band.
But isn't it lovely the way they used to sing themselves to sleep with harmonies and stuff, and thinking that they were just in a room on their own, not realising their mum, dad heard all of it in the next room and knew they were talented.
I think there's something about family harmonisation. I don't know if it's in the similar voices singing together, but I think family vocal harmony groups are way above friends coming together and harmonising.
It must be the same tone or similar tone.
Defo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also all the time you spend together, that you get they're in sync.
Yeah.
Although that band came later.
And they weren't brothers. So Michael wasn't in the Jacksons to begin with. No. Because he was too young, right?
Yeah. Started trying to play the bongos.
He played the bongos that he made out of a cardboard box.
But also, I've always known this about Michael, that he was a massive observer and like a sponge. He really soaked up everything from the wings. If they were on tour with other people, he was always the one in the wings watching and then knocking on the dressing room door and asking questions. I always knew that. And all the other boys were interested in, where are the girls, where's this, where's that. He was so focused. So even watching his own brothers.
At that young age,
Yeah.
they were the only people he had to observe.
Yeah.
And then as he grew, he was...
But he's the genius. I mean, he's already singled out as the one who's dedicated to music.
I mean, he's young at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really young.
So how old was he when he joined the Jackson 5? I can't remember, like 6 or 7?
About 7. Hang on. When they signed to Motown, he was 10 and they said he was 8.
He sang... Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he must have joined about 6 or 7.
I think he sang in the school play, didn't he, to begin with, and just blew everyone away.
Yeah, because he hadn't sung out loud before.
Wow. I have to say, when they... like the confidence that little boy has with his singing and his dancing and his repartee to the audience... I kind of thought he came off as a bit precocious.
Right.
And unlike adult Michael, actually, who comes across as very shy, it surprised me that little Michael was portrayed in this book, at least. I don't know anything about him. I got the impression that he was just very confident as a child.
Yeah, and he was the one saying no to the dad and stuff.
Yeah.
The only one.
But I wonder if that's because he knew he was kind of the favourite at that point.
Yeah, he was still getting whipped, though.
Oh, my God, that dad, honestly. Do you know what? It's worse than Mommy Dearest, I have to say.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, because it's so consistent. It's daily. It's hanging over him.
And also that awful thing of
Mind you, that was bad.
Yeah, it was. Well, Mommy Dearest was bad. Yeah. But also that thing of having 6 or 7 brothers and sisters and hearing them get whipped, knowing it's going to be your turn at some point, and living in that tiny house with your dad never more than a 3 feet away, unpredictable, but a very good music manager.
Yeah, really good, really good.
So swings and roundabouts.
It's really complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But anyway, the talent of the boy, it shines out. Because they say they rehearse, and then when they go on stage, he does all the rehearsed bits and then suddenly goes off into a tangent, goes into the audience, and they're all like, whoa, where did that come from? And it's always amazing. Mm-hmm. That's very
Where did it come from?
I know what they would say, God.
Yeah, well, it's a God-given talent, isn't it?
Meaning, if that word might be nature. It's just a gift.
Yeah,
it's gifted.
A gift. Yeah,
it's gifted, but also had the will to want it. So,
and there's a lot to be said as well for having like 4 older brothers who were musical and were already in a band and stuff. So he had it to aspire to. He saw that it was possible that people did it.
Yes, he's
people
only ever
in
known
his house
that
were
it's
doing
possible.
it.
Yeah. As has Janet.
Yeah, of course.
Explains a lot.
I love Janet way more than Michael, by the way.
That's because you got no issues with her.
Oh, no, I don't have any issues with her. Yeah.
Why would you? There are no issues.
So they're Jackson 5 at the moment, right? And they're going out and they're gigging. They're gigging for a couple of years, right? In strip clubs and stuff. I mean,
I know,
they're
it's crazy.
Children.
Yeah,
and
they've
their
seen
dad
too much.
Is taking them to strip
Jehovah's
clubs.
dad. Yeah. They've seen way too much. It's going to warp their minds with women, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think Jermaine has been entirely honest in this book about pulling girls and...
he skims over it.
There's a bit in this book about when Jermaine brings a groupie back to the hotel room that he's sharing with Michael, but Michael's not in the hotel room. And while Jermaine and this girl are getting down to it, Michael's hand comes out from under the bed and starts touching the lady's leg, and he has a laugh, and Jermaine says, "Get out of here," and he's gone. That's all he talks about in this book. You're not telling me that those horny teenagers who are touring America, getting more famous by the day, girls throwing themselves at them. You're not telling me that it's not a regular occurrence, that they're taking girls back to their hotel rooms and those little boys are in the room. Michael and Marlon, who is the other similar age one.
I wouldn't doubt that for a second.
Awful. Jermaine, essentially, how old are they? They're young teenagers, right? They're not like fully grown men. But I think that possibly has affected Michael.
It's just contributing to the warping of the mind, isn't it? There's a lot of contributing factors.
Do you know what? One thing that I wondered throughout this book, Marlon is the one who's youngest in age to Michael, right? Like the other young one. What happened to him and how is he?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, because I imagine he had a similar... I mean, he wasn't thrust out the front like Michael was.
Yeah, but, I mean, Michael's gay,
Yeah, so you can talk.
That's the only... Nobody ever sort of says that. Because everyone says he's a paedophile, but aside from that, the main thing is he's probably gay.
I would say that he is, because
that's the thing that makes it different for him, because that's not allowed in their family. That's not, you can't be absorbed into that situation at all.
Reading between the lines, and Jermaine never says this, but just how Michael Jackson is, how he is to women, how respectful he is and stuff, and how he doesn't show any sexual interest in them. He's a gay man.
Yeah, he is.
But he is growing up in a Jehovah family with a tyrant of a dad with 4 older brothers. He can't be gay in that scenario.
No, he absolutely cannot.
Yeah. Sorry, just to repeat you, he can't be gay in that scenario.
I say it weirdly because no one ever says that.
What about Michael?
Yeah, it's never said. Those words aren't said about him. Probably because he never actively was a gay man with a boyfriend, or so he never.
I think he totally sidestepped it by creating this persona, which was so otherworldly. I mean, he was still Michael Jackson, but in the way like David Bowie created Ziggy Stardust, which was otherworldly. I think Michael Jackson did that as himself. He's almost a bit alien-like, and if he is like that, he can totally sidestep the question about sexuality. And he did. I read one article after reading this book, and I didn't mean to. The whole point of this podcast is that we just read the book and form our opinions from the book.
Yes, that's right.
But I read one article, and it was basically about women who had been with Michael Jackson, i.e. prostitutes and stuff, because his brothers got him a prostitute on like his 60th birthday to take his virginity. That's gross anyway. Yeah. But anyway, there are these other girls who kind of were shoved together in a hotel room with Michael, and they said that he just wanted to talk. And one prostitute said, "You don't have to pay me because I really want to be with you." And she opened her shirt and showed her breasts, and he said, "Put them away." Yeah. And he ends up reading her passages out of the Bible. Yeah. I mean, and I don't think these women are lying, because usually when prostitutes talk about famous people, they say stuff like, "Well, he wanted a dildo up his arse" and stuff.
No, and it's completely in keeping with him being a gay man.
Yeah, and I think I don't know how many men who are in the room with a free prostitute would pass that by unless they were gay.
Exactly. Look, this is the thing. If you could only read an autobiography without any knowledge, like on a jury, we would be thrown off the jury, because we've lived through his entire life. This book's filled with the stuff that we've been told that isn't true. A lot of it, I realise that now.
Right.
Oh wow, we were told this, we were told that. That was rubbish. But we're so not impartial.
We're not impartial.
Because we've absorbed every fact of him that's ever been said over years.
And what's interesting is you've come at this book from being a super fan, and I've come at this book...
I'm a dented super fan, though. I'm saddened.
Well, I've come to this book thinking the worst of him, and actually coming around to him a lot.
Yeah, that's good.
Is it, though?
Well, I am glad, because all that stuff... Well, firstly, I think whatever he was... a bit of human understanding, because I've always backed him, because I've known that as a kid he did go through all that stuff, and that means that it's kind of warped his perception of childhood, full stop.
Yeah, well, he had known, really.
Secondly, he was so mega famous that to end up befriending kids is like the only people that would talk to him normally without trying to do a deal or get some, just actually animals.
I think he should have stuck to the animals.
Yeah. But I always used to say, though, at the time when it was happening, I used to say, like, oh no, I really don't want to get into this whole debate.
Right, let's go back to the Jackson 5.
We'll have to just go back to it.
So, their dad actually tries to get them to meet Berry Gordy, the founder of Motown, 2 or 3 times, and Berry Gordy has just launched Stevie Wonder, who was a child, and he doesn't want any more children.
One kid. Yeah.
And so he keeps saying no to the Jacksons. Now, hang on, they then got a slot on a nationwide TV show, and I can't remember which one it was. Was it the Ed Sullivan Show or something?
Something like that.
But anyway, at the same day, they actually managed to get an audition with Berry Gordy. So rather than appear on national television, well, let's face it, back in the late 60s, there were only like 2 TV channels. It would have been
huge.
That would have launched them to success, but their dad said, no, we're going to go to audition for Motown Records.
The wisest decision he ever made.
Isn't it? I mean, a big risk.
Going for the long...
For somebody who'd already turned them down twice.
Yeah.
Or didn't want to see them twice. And they went and they absolutely blew them away.
You must have seen that YouTube footage before.
What?
Of Michael, of that audition.
You're kidding. Is it on YouTube?
Yes, it is.
No way.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. That kid is 10. It's very James Brown. He's really absorbed James Brown. Of course, they were doing covers at that time, weren't they?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I'm going to watch it. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Diana Ross is in the picture at this point. Because she's signed on Motown and she's a massive. Yeah. The thing that I found amazing is when Berry Gordy signs them and they said, "What's the plan?" He goes, "Well, first of all, you're going to have 3 number-1 singles."
Yeah.
And then they did. Well, they had 4.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you actually can predict.
Because he knows the music industry more than. He said it was the part of the PR plan for Diana Ross to say she found them. And even Michael Jackson said that in his autobiography because he was just being loyal to that story. But it was a story. If you read it coming from Michael Jackson's mouth, that's got to be true. Mm-hmm. If Diana Ross says it's got to be true. Oh my God, it wasn't true.
It wasn't true.
It wasn't even true.
What I was really surprised, I looked at their discography. Their first album was actually called Diana Ross Presents a Jackson 5.
That's
it's just like, wow.
Said.
And she didn't have anything to do with it.
No, just because she was just putting her weight behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for her. She loved them.
Yeah.
She was blown away by them.
Yeah.
She had no problem doing it. And they're a huge success at this one. I mean, but at times they're being taken to town to do gigs where like the Ku Klux Klan is still very prominent.
Yeah.
I mean,
really scary.
In a way it's kind of stupid sending them there.
Yeah, but they are part of the whole Motown era that changed the racial divide. Music changed it. And the bravery of them, even if they didn't know they were being brave, literally took the barriers down in theatres and stuff, didn't it? Amazing. Oh, it took me years to actually hear the words of "Can You Feel It?"
What do you mean, hear the words?
Because it's saying like the blood inside of me is inside of you. You know, it's like it's all about. Yeah, okay. Oh my God! Listen to the words. It's a tune with a tail.
It's a good tune.
It's amazing though, because it just sounds like upbeat disco tune. And you read the words, you'd be like, "Wow, powerful stuff."
Did they write, when they were the Jackson 5, they were being written for, right? And they started off doing a lot of covers. It
was only when they left Motown, and that's why they left Motown, so they could have creative input.
Right, okay, yeah, fair dues. So the Jackson 5 were just like the biggest, hottest act for a few years on the Motown label. Yeah, they did.
They really dropped off. That was news to me. I didn't realise they ever had that much of a lull.
Yeah, and also how they came back. But they reinvented as the Jacksons, didn't they, at that point? So Jackson 5 had their massive success and tapered off. I guess
because they left Jermaine.
But at the point when Jackson 5 is tapering, do you think it's because they're getting older?
Yes,
and
definitely.
all of a sudden Michael Jackson isn't this cute little thing
it's massively
anymore.
Because of that. And your audience don't know how to go with you. But then that's why they felt they had to change labels. It makes all of the sense. You've got to go with the times, haven't you, if you're getting older? Yeah. It's a shame Jermaine didn't go.
Well, here's the thing, is that Jermaine married Berry Gordy's daughter, Berry Gordy, the owner of Motown. And so when the decision to leave Motown happened, he was conflicted because he's married to the daughter of the owner of Motown.
Yeah, he felt a loyalty.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Berry Gordy never made him feel that. Do you know what? That's the running theme of this book is just how loyal Jermaine is to everyone.
Very true.
You really want him on your side, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Do you know what Berry Gordy should have done in retrospect, right? Is force him to go. Said go. Because he'd have made all the profit from the old Jackson's albums, which, to be honest, I'm still buying Jackson 5 albums. So the more successful they would have carried on being, would have still made him more in a back catalogue sort of way.
Yeah. But luckily for the Jackson family, they had another son called Randy who stepped in. He was too young at the time of the Jackson 5. But when they moved from Motown to CBS, Jermaine didn't go with them, but that was okay because they had another one.
Yeah, but it's like Jerry leaving the Spice Girls. Well, she's back now, but Victoria then, because everyone absolutely loves her, and the Spice Girls are never the same without her. Even though they still sell out stadiums. People loved Jermaine. He was the heartthrob. That was his role, and he is the next best looking one. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion.
Do you know, I think they're all really good. I've been looking at old photos of them.
Lovely blokes, boys, can you say?
And that really pains me of what Michael did to his face, but we'll get to that.
Yeah,
he was so good looking. The early 80s, he was perfect.
Yeah, he's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that poor boy. Everything he
his
went
whole life.
through warped his mind.
I know, it really
Everything
did.
he went through.
The body dysmorphia and all that, facial dysmorphia.
God, yeah. I never expected to feel this sorry for Michael Jackson, I have to say.
Wow. I'm always had more of a space in my heart for Michael because I've always read everything, every single thing there is to read about him. I've read it. So I know all this stuff that you're now finding out.
Right.
That's making you sort of understand him.
Yeah.
Because it's not to judge or so much as the first step is understanding, at least, isn't it? And it opens you up to be less judgmental about someone and you're gaining more understanding.
So Jacksons are now signed to CBS without Jermaine. So they're still a 5-piece. And disco is ushering in at this point, right? So they're essentially becoming a disco
They
band.
had some cracking disco hits. Dancing Machine being my favourite. It's fantastic. And him learning that robot dancing and stuff. Perfecting it on his own. The way he just locked himself away and made himself the master of dance.
You see, because he wasn't interested in girls.
Yeah.
And
he could dedicate his time
he totally
to
was
his craft.
focused and dedicating and becoming
perfecting his craft.
And he really did.
Yeah.
You see, you don't want to hang around with girls.
Well, it's what made him. Yeah, he's not normal, so he can channel all that energy that they want to channel in pursuing tail, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
He can channel all that energy into music, and that's what I've always thought about him. When he's all quiet and shy and everything, when he starts dancing and singing, it's like it is a sexual energy that comes through him, which kind of makes for an amazing dancer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
An amazing performer. But that is that energy. It's all that testosterone, everything in him comes out that way.
He was as much about dance as singing
really
and music, because one of his heroes is Fred Astaire, right?
So Bob Fosse copies a lot of. I mean, a lot of, if you watch him. But then he absorbs all these people, James Brown, all these people, absorbs them all, and then comes out as his own. And street dancers. And I think Shalimar taught him some moves.
Jeffrey
all sorts
thingy.
of people.
Yeah.
He just takes from everybody all the greats. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So he can become brilliant.
Yes. That's one word that you can definitely attribute to Michael Jackson is brilliant. Whatever you think about him, anything that happened in his personal life or any rumours or anything, he's absolutely brilliant at what he does, and because of that he deserves to be the king of pop.
He does.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish we could somehow separate him so we'd still hear his music more and still see his work more, because we're depriving ourselves.
Well,
culturally.
I feel like I'm coming around to him, so I've got it all to look forward to.
Oh my God. You know what I mean? If you've got a programme in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I'd keep it at those three.
When the Jacksons were the Jacksons in all their glittery suit, the one thing that I find absolutely amazing is that Michael Jackson went off and did his solo stuff, Off the Wall and Thriller, to huge success, and still went back and he was part of the Jacksons.
Yeah.
People generally don't do that. I wonder if that's a family ties. When people are in a successful band and have a solo career, they rarely go back until their solo career bombs.
Yeah.
And then the revival happens 20 years later.
Yeah.
But he was doing them simultaneously when he didn't have to.
He obviously didn't really want to.
Or do you think his dad scared him into it?
No, I think that bond from right from the start, that I never realised, because I always wondered, and I thought they pressured him, and I thought he felt obliged to look after them because they weren't doing very well without him. But now I realise there's more to that. It's a genuine bond of this sort of Jehovah family that they have to stay together.
Do you think that the Jacksons wouldn't have been as good without him?
When I saw them in Vegas, it was about 2 years after Michael died.
Yeah.
I was very excited about it. I got there about 2 hours early. Came on and they were backlit, right? And they'd frozen, but one of them just moved a little bit. And I went, no, I could have walked out there and then. I virtually walked out there.
Who was it? Name and shame them.
I think it was Jermaine, you know.
No,
I can't remember which one. But I was like, no way. They've lost it. They've lost it. Because you can't open in a silhouette and move.
Yeah.
One of them, and I thought that's not the discipline that we've been led to believe. That's not what they would have.
Yeah.
Never would. They'd have got a whipping for that.
Yeah. Do you think he still hits them now?
That's even my brain. I'm like, no, Michael would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Never, ever would they have moved. And I know the rest of it, but I thought, wow, no, it was Michael who was amazing, and you lot are average. oh my God, I hope no one's listening to this.
They're all listening.
Because they're so nice.
They're all listening.
They might even agree.
Oh, I think they're
average.
20, 30 years older now.
They probably put on a good act. Yes, they could sing harmonies. Jermaine has an okay voice, and the rest of them absolutely average.
Mm-hmm.
It was Michael that made them, 100%, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah. I'm open to debate on that.
Right.
I've got a list of things I need to watch on YouTube. Jermaine songs that I'm really not that aware of. I don't think he really succeeded in Britain.
He had a couple of top 10 hits.
There's
but
a couple I recognise the name of, mostly.
Let's Get Serious. That's a tune.
Yes, that one.
Come on.
Yeah.
Can we talk about Jermaine and Whitney at this point?
Ooh.
Have we jumped too far ahead?
Oh, wait, we're all over the shop.
No, hang on. No, it comes...
Yeah, because they've gone off to join CBS, and he stayed...
He's on his own.
He's on his own, and he's doing a lot of producing.
It's before Whitney made it,
Yeah.
so we're early 80s. We're actually at the right time to talk about this.
And he gets given this young artist, as yet unknown, to help produce...
Was it Clive Davis who introduced them?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
To help produce her first album.
And it's Whitney Houston.
It's Whitney bloody Houston.
Yeah. And he meets her. It's just
Massive
love
chemistry.
at first sight. Yeah. Amazing.
Huge chemistry between them. And obviously she's incredible singer.
Yeah.
So that would have helped.
Yeah.
And
even the short part that she's in this book, I totally get just how magnetic and charismatic he found her. And it almost made me like, wow, she's amazing.
I know this tiny bit where he said they were singing close to the mic in harmony, then he pulled away and she kept her face right close to the mic and she went, what are you going to do with me, Jackson? And then turned and walked away. And I'm like, okay, that's going to send you mental. You're married, you've got kids, you can't do anything about it.
This is an annoying thing about this, is Jermaine says, I was married. And so there was, as much as I wanted to do anything about it, I couldn't.
Obviously, later in life, that didn't stop him.
Right.
But at that point, he was loyal.
I know. Well, what is it, idiot? If you're going to cheat, so later on, cheat with Whitney Houston.
Yeah, get it right. What a different life Whitney might have had, mind you. He wasn't normal himself either. He had a tiger as well, let's not forget.
Oh, yeah.
In a cage in his hotel room.
Yeah, that's not great.
He's not normal. He comes across very normal until the odd clues. You're like, hang on.
Yeah. You've got a tiger in your hotel room.
But how can he be? Cause
he's Jackson.
Yeah, you can't be.
Mind you, Whitney is a Houston. She didn't come from nowhere.
True, but did she get whipped? Did she get taken to prostitute?
Oh, we have to read her book.
Christ, did she write one?
I don't know.
She wouldn't be honest. But that's another bombshell because it's true that thing is, was she gay? Was that Robin her partner? Wow, she doesn't sound really gay at all.
Jermaine references Robin in this book.
Yeah, she does. He does.
And he more or less says that Whitney...
That's nonsense because if you were around her, you'd see how charismatic she was around men.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean she can't be charismatic around women.
That's absolutely true. But then I thought about this for a bit and I thought that Robin is kind of very manly.
Yeah.
She's a manly gay woman.
Yeah.
So...
I love her,
that same
by the way.
vibe. Oh, I'm sure
Robin.
She's absolutely excellent. She comes across as excellent.
Yes, she really does.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, briefly, the Whitney Houston video for Saving All My Love for You.
Yeah.
Which basically...
I watched for the first time. Did you know it already?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically...
It's Jermaine. She's
having
an
an affair
audition.
with
Can
Jermaine.
I find a Jermaine lookalike? And it's them making the album and them going mad for each other, but he's got a family at home. It's in the words. It's all there.
But she's saving all her love for him.
Well, she didn't.
No.
Well, she saved it at the time because she couldn't spend it.
Do you like Pepsi? Or are you a Coke girl?
I did the Pepsi challenge once.
You did it on TV.
Oh no, that was about whether it was Lidl or an expensive brand, and I couldn't tell the difference. Or something.
Could you not?
But back in the day, I did the Pepsi challenge, got it right, and got a yo-yo.
Did you get a yo-yo? Yeah. Didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I like Pepsi.
Yeah.
I like Coke.
I like Pepsi and Coke.
Yeah.
I'm not sure now. I think I can. I do know the difference.
They're completely different.
Yeah.
But I like them both.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't like any variation. It has to be the proper one.
Yeah.
I don't like sugar-free or caffeine-free or diet. It has to be proper Pepsi or proper Coke.
Just packed full of sugar, basically.
Yeah. But that's why you drink it.
Yeah.
It's a treat.
I
you have
only
twice a
really
day.
use it as a hangover cure.
Which is perfect
So
for.
the less I'm now much less hungover, I drink a lot less.
Yeah.
Hardly ever drink it.
Yeah.
Hooray.
But I get those little cans when I just fancy a taste of it.
Yeah.
It really hits a spot.
It does.
Yeah. That was like an advert.
It was like an advert. But Pepsi ruined Michael Jackson's life.
Do you believe that?
Yeah, I believe it was the Kickstarter to dependency on.
So not his dad drugs. Regularly beating him.
Okay,
it was
a load of different things were in life. That was a massive catalyst, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Without any doubt.
With starting his dependency on painkillers,
prescription drugs, and it's horrifying. I mean, again, it's something I'm really aware of. I've seen videos, I've read about it. It's not a secret.
The incident?
Yes,
his dependency on...
No, all of it, actually. Yeah. I knew all of this stuff.
I remember hearing about it on the news when I was just like a little kid.
So anyway, viewer, you can't view this, can you? But yes, he did a Pepsi advert, and they said they'd got 5 takes already, and it was the 6th one or something, and then made him do it again to get a silhouette, and it took ages for them to realise that the sparks that were flying caught in his hairspray, flammable hairspray, and his whole head was on fire.
God damn!
And it's like whatever degree burns. 5th, 4th.
Horrendous.
His head was on fire.
Yeah.
And it took him about 3 years of being in extreme pain for the pain to go away.
Wow. And it
never properly went away.
He got hooked on Demerol, which is a strong painkiller.
Which Jermaine points out, it says on the packet, one of the side effects is dependency.
And that's just it's an accident, it's a freak accident.
It's an accident, but the thing is, in this day and age, we're so aware of health and safety, and that hairspray is really flammable, and to put hairspray near flames and sparks and stuff is insane.
So you think somebody didn't do a proper risk assessment, or do you think it was just the 80s and people didn't care?
Hairspray was kind of new, wasn't it?
No. They had hairspray in the 50s and 60s. How do they get all the beehives to stick up? Yeah.
Soap. Honey. What? Beehives, honey. Yeah. Takes an accident like that to change health and safety. It's always someone's downfall that promotes change.
Well, but I mean, he soldiered on. He still had a massive career, even though he had a burnt head.
Yeah, I was thinking
he got his hair back, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Some skin grafts, though, and stuff.
Yes,
that will probably be his introduction to surgeons and surgery.
Oh, because up until that point, do you think, did he have any facial... When did he have his nose
might have had his nose tweaked
before?
Fairly early on, actually.
Yeah, I think he did. So actually, earlier on, I can't remember now if it was before we started recording, but I was saying just out at the beginning of the 80s, he was an exceptionally good-looking young man, Michael Jackson. But that might have been after he'd already had some work done.
He's beautiful when he's a kid. He's a beautiful
but he was so unhappy about his big flat nose. Yeah. You know the cleft in his chin? Is that plastic surgery?
Jermaine says that he knows he went too far, and he actually has a little mini rant saying if it was a doctor, they would say, no, this is no longer good for your health. And as a doctor, I have ethics and I can't advise you to do this past this point. And he said a plastic surgery should have those same ethics, because there's a point where he was messed with himself too far and there's no turning back, and it shouldn't have been allowed.
I think the trouble is when you have as much money as Michael Jackson,
no one says no.
Yeah, you just get what you want done, and the surgeon's happy to do it. He didn't look great at the end, I have to be honest.
He really didn't.
And it's kind of like, even as a plastic surgeon, to begin with, when he looks great at the beginning of the 80s, you can say, oh yeah, I'm Michael Jackson's plastic surgeon, something to be proud of. But not like at the end of the 90s.
To a point, because he's born beautiful, and he's never wasn't beautiful. It's all in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he changed and changed and changed, but still didn't look bad up to a point.
I think the thing with him, the amount of work he's had done, I think he looked good on videos or on album covers where he has professional makeup and lighting. I think his plastic surgery got to the point, if he was ever pap, he looked terrible, actually.
I believe the skin condition stories, I have to say.
I do. I never know how to pronounce it. Vitiligo.
Yeah.
Vitiligo. But he did patchy skin. So he's a black man, but he's getting patches of white on his skin.
Yeah.
And he had to because he wanted to cover that up. When the patches were smaller, the white patches were smaller, his makeup artist would cover them
Black
up.
Black patches, yeah.
So, but then as the patches got bigger, the makeup artist would make him whiter because more of his skin was white, so it's obviously easier to cover the smaller patches. That's a good makeup job, because he looks white towards the end.
It's quite strange, isn't it?
Yeah, really strange. But I've no reason to
I have no reason to disbelieve that. And the other amazing thing is that Jermaine fully says or believes that he's the biological father of those children.
Who is?
Michael.
Is the biological father of
his own children.
Apple
the first
and Blanket.
Two anyway.
What they call Prince
and Paris.
Prince and Paris.
Yeah, he had them with Debbie.
Yes,
Debbie.
but he just said that Debbie had the dominant gene, which is why they're white and blonde.
Yeah. I've always stared at them and I can't see Michael anywhere in them. But
Jermaine can see it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So him saying that, man. Okay.
But what Michael are you trying to see in them? The young one? Because he looks so...
I am trying to see the young one because the other one isn't real.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for the original Michael. I can't see him at all. But if Jermaine can see it and he says, why wouldn't it be his
Jermaine
gene?
could be gaslighting you.
I know, he absolutely could though. Because if Michael doesn't want to look like young Michael, a black man basically, then why would he want his kids to look like that? Why would he want to pass that on to his kids if he hates his look so much? So maybe you would pick some Arabian
Why do you think
prince.
He does hate his kids? Why he does hate his looks so much?
Because he doesn't like who he is.
Yeah. But he was adored. You know, and even when he was a kid, everybody telling him how brilliant he is.
It's George Michael all over again. He's not adored for who he really is. You know.
So you're saying because he's gay?
Yeah, because he's not being who he really is.
So when he looks in the mirror, he's
probably not. Right, George Michael accepted who he is, so he could get through it. But I don't think Michael Jackson ever accepted what he is. So it's bottled up and it imploded on himself. And he looks in the mirror and hates himself.
Can I tell you some just completely different?
Yeah.
Something else in the book which didn't shock me, but I thought was very unusual. So Michael is a Jehovah's Witness and his mum is. The brothers don't seem to be as... Well, when they grow up, not as much.
No.
And the dad certainly wasn't. I mean, he didn't behave like one.
Not really.
But Michael did, and he did stay in the church, and he'd even knock on doors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how weird would that have been?
I knew that. Prince did it too, you know.
Did he? What, was he a Jehovah?
He became one later in life, after his child died, and he was seeking some answers, and then Larry Graham from Sly and the Family Stones stepped in and sort of swooped in when he was at his lowest and sold him Jehovah.
Oh, no
And he
kidding.
went for it, and he went door to door a lot, yeah.
The thing that blows my mind about Michael Jackson being a Jehovah is that when he was going on tour and stuff, 2 of the elders shadowed him everywhere.
Yeah, that's not good.
They followed him around.
Right near the end when he was...
All through it.
that part!
Yeah.
Yeah!
Like when he made the Thriller video.
On his content and stuff.
Yeah.
Clearly not keeping much of an eye because they overlooked some really key things.
I just think they were just on a jolly.
That's what it sounds like to me.
They wanted to be
just
hanging out with the Jacksons.
Yeah, because the stuff he produced at that time was things like bad. I don't know, stuff like that though.
But I mean, why? I bet they weren't following anybody else in the church.
No.
They were just keeping an eye on Michael Jackson because they wanted to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
They wanted to be linked to celebrity and hang out.
Yeah, but they had the best time.
Saw right through them.
No wonder his upkeep was so much. So many hangers on. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, but wasn't he being fleeced as well by the record? They were charging so much, like the Michael Jackson account.
Yeah.
And Jermaine even said for like even things like stationery, there was a massive bill.
£150,000 a month for stationery and flowers. Again.
Yeah, they were fleecing him.
Yeah.
Oh God, it really does just drive it home that even though you're Michael Jackson, you think he has all the power and stuff. Actually, he's just a commodity who's being ripped off by businessmen. I've
said it all my life, pirate treasure. As soon as you get hold of pirate treasure, you're ruined. Everyone's after you.
Yeah.
You're going to get murdered ultimately. You're going to get murdered. You're going to die. A pirate's life is not a long life once you've got the treasure.
Once you've got the treasure.
Don't want the treasure. It's the worst thing you can have.
It's, do you know what? Before we get there, can we talk about a Thriller? Let's talk about something cool. Thriller's an amazing album.
I mean, it's like there's all this crap around it. There's all the attorneys and the law and the fighting and the bickering. But whenever they do art, I'm not sure about Jermaine's art, to be honest. But whenever Michael does art, it's phenomenal. I
think you were saying about Jermaine, I've got no reason to believe that his art is not as good because we don't know it.
There's no way he's as good as them.
Oh, okay.
There's no way.
Why not?
We can't dance.
Okay.
You know, he's not he's okay, but those two people
he's not
are
in their league.
Powerhouses.
But if it wasn't for Jermaine and his brothers, Michael and Janet wouldn't
exist.
Be that good.
No.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because they were born into a family that were already on the way.
Yeah. What we're talking about, Thrift. Okay. Those are all Michael's ideas. He's got a head full of ideas. He's such a creative genius. Borrowing from everyone all the time, of course. But it's very musical.
You know, they said the book begins with the steamed up mirror in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And they said that Michael would, in the mist, would write stuff like, I'm going to sell 50 million albums. I'm going to sell out arena tours and stuff. Yeah. And he did.
Yeah.
So he always had his sights on being... In the Guinness Book of Records, they talk about that in the book a few times. And as a kid, he would read it. Yeah. And then he said, I want to be in here. As like
the drive.
Yeah. And he did it.
Oh my God, talking of which, right, 2 points. One is that Michael Jackson watched every single camera angle, footage was part of the edit. He has total control. The first time I ever heard of that, which didn't happen before it, but the first time I heard of it, was Madonna.
Yeah, Madonna does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the bit about when Madonna's hanging out with them and basically stealing their lives. Oh my God, she's so brazen.
Because she was early on in her career then.
She's a brazen
And she managed to infiltrate the Jacksons when she just had like a couple of singles out.
Infiltrated.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And she got his manager as well, which is basically why she became this biggest star in the world too.
I mean, to be honest, that...
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her. She saw them. She decided that's the route she wanted to go and beeline towards them. But that's one thing. She's just hanging out with them, forcing herself on them, being obviously loads of fun around them, but then trying to get off with Randy, who had a steady girlfriend, and she wasn't having any luck.
So
right in front of his girlfriend, she just stuck her tongue down his throat. I mean, that's how brazen she is. And she walks away from that with their manager, their producers, I don't know, and a massive career.
I like how Jermaine is just such a gentleman in this whole book, and you can just read between them. He's kind of nice about Madonna, but you can tell that he just didn't appreciate what her behaviour at all.
Yeah, he's kind of nicely saying, look, she just brazened in and then took from us and shut up.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
she knew like Michael. She knew what she wanted, and she went and got it.
Yeah,
and she's brilliant.
She did work her ass off for it too.
Yeah, she deserves it.
Yeah, so, I know. It's just interesting, isn't it?
Definitely.
To get that little insight.
And I love the fact because obviously, like at the beginning of the 90s, Madonna and Michael Jackson kind of, I don't know if you can call it dated.
They called it dating. They went out to dinner.
Times.
I mean, that's not dating.
But then did you see Jermaine said that it kind of was all right until...
She slagged off Janet.
Slagged Janet off. And then Michael didn't have anything else to do with her. Yeah, I mean, why would you do that?
And also, on many levels, how could you slag off Janet? She's amazing.
Well, jealousy, I suppose.
Well, just being a bitch. I remember when Michael died and Madonna, I remember her saying, I can't stop crying.
Really?
Yeah.
It's weird because Madonna, Michael Jackson and Prince were all born in the same month. Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
She said the same about Prince, but I knew she spent a lot of time with Prince in his later years and
together
stuff.
And stuff, didn't they?
And I remember, because I went to Paisley Park, and then people there said Madonna was touring at Memphis.
Yeah.
Not Memphis, Minneapolis. And had phoned Paisley Park and said, is there a party going on?
Oh, yes.
And had just waylaid her tour bus. Everyone's Paisley Park, and Prince was just played. Everyone was dancing, all her dancers and everything. And she apparently just sat at his feet for the whole night. And that was probably in the last year of his life.
Yeah.
So they stayed connected. Maybe her and Michael did. Who knows? Although it sounds like it was very, very hard to get hold of Michael.
Of Michael, yeah, for sure. He would retreat, definitely, and hide from everyone. And I think in the book, Jermaine says a couple of times, he'd go and see Michael and security said, no, he's not here. And stuff.
Even when he's at the house, it's his brother.
Yeah, but the security are doing that on Michael's instruction.
Yeah,
Michael has said to them, I don't want to see anyone.
Oh, yeah, and don't even let my family, and they're definitely doing that. Yeah, he's not admitting that. And because Michael then says, oh, I don't know why, they think they're in charge, I'm going to get rid of them, because he has to. Oh, that's harsh, isn't it? And that will be to do with having this private life that he can't face.
Yeah.
His family.
Yeah. Now, I've never liked the name Wacko Jacko.
No, that's horrible.
It's just a lazy nickname from a tabloid anyway.
Yeah.
But do you know what? I distinctly remember on the front page of the Sun newspaper, a picture of Michael Jackson sleeping in his oxygen chamber and believing it, really.
Exactly.
And then the book explains that actually he was just at a hospital.
He paid for a wing of a hospital.
And there was a oxygen chamber for burns victims. And he thought it looked brilliant, space age, and so he just hopped inside
for a minute, for seconds.
Have his photo taken. Yeah. And now all of a sudden
that was spread.
The newspaper spun it that he bought an oxygen chamber because he wants to live to be 150.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of went with Michael Jackson's vibe at the time somehow. Yeah. But then was that vibe created by the media?
His calling him a weirdo and stuff, yeah, definitely.
All of that.
But do you know what? It was easily done, I think, because his behaviour was not... I don't like the word normal.
It's so weird, though, because, he wore masks all the time. As soon as COVID happened, I said to myself, oh, my God, Michael Jackson just didn't want to get germs. Didn't want to get ill because he was meeting thousands and millions of screaming fans.
That was his mum. Right at the beginning.
That's a great point.
His mum was a germ freak, right? And they all were. And I think Jermaine actually says it. Jermaine said in the Big Brother house.
That's absolutely correct.
He was really funny about germs. It comes from their mother.
Yeah. I remember reading that thinking, oh my God, that explains so much.
Yeah.
They had to wipe every surface clean. Germany, they had to wash their hands. All that stuff. Because there's 9 people in the house, 11 people in the house ultimately in the end.
Children.
You're all going to get ill all the time if you don't really keep hygiene up.
Or not, you just get immune to it.
Well, there is that theory, yeah.
With Michael wearing a mask, when nobody did, and we thought he was a weirdo, I kind of thought whether he did it initially so he wouldn't be recognised. But then you're drawing attention to yourself by the very nature of wearing a mask, aren't you? Because nobody used to. No.
And I think sometimes he was probably having a bit of surgery on his nose and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
I used to think that at the time. But then COVID, I was like, oh, my God. And the gloves. And I suddenly realised as well, our Queen used to wear gloves all the time.
Right.
Oh, my gosh, she has to shake 1,000,000 hands.
Right.
Germs. COVID really brought that home. And then I realised the Queen and Michael were way ahead.
Yeah,
because they met so many people. It makes him seem less weird when you realise that.
You don't think he'd like wearing his mask and gloves and stuff because of his vitiligo? Maybe on the day when he didn't have his makeup artist around, but he wanted to go out, he just put a mask on to cover it up.
And another thing not that many people know is that the glove and the white socks, and then later on when he put white tape around his fingers, was to draw attention to his hands and feet, because his hand movements and stuff, you need to be able to see it. That really makes sense.
Did you wear plasters on your fingers to be like Michael Jackson?
No, masking tape sometimes.
There was so much to talk about with the Jacksons that we couldn't fit it all into 1 hour, so there's another hour coming soon. Unless, of course, you're listening to this next week, in which case it's already there. Just check where you found this episode. There may already be a part 2, or join us on our Facebook page, Thrift Shop Biography, and you'll be the first to know when it comes out. It's quite stressful. Here's a snippet.
I hate talking about this.
Yeah, no,
this is the worst part of it, but I know
don't think you can't talk about him without talking about this.
You can't.
Yeah.
But I've wrestled with this for years.
I know. See you soon. And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This is part 2 of the Jacksons. Thank you for listening. So, at the end of the 80s, Jermaine was looking to revive his career. He was making a new album. And he meets up with Michael, and he very excitedly tells him that he's met these cool producers called L.A. Reid and Babyface, and he's going to do an album with them. It's all booked, and in a few months' time he's going to, I can't remember if it's L.A. or anything.
I can't remember where it is. But he moves his wife and kids.
That's right, he moves
puts them in a school.
Yeah. In order to record this amazing album. And then he gets the message that L.A. Reid and Babyface have delayed the recording sessions. Why? Because somebody else is working with them. Oh, who is it? It was Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
His brother poached L.A. Reid and Babyface.
Yeah. It was
it's
3 months he waited to find that out as well, because no one was getting back to him.
I mean...
It's bad.
It's really, really bad.
Bad, you know it.
That could have been Jermaine's big album.
Yeah.
Because he was building up, you know. He had hits in the 80s and stuff. That could have been a brilliant time for him.
Yeah.
But because of that, Jermaine started working on new music and playing around with lyrics. And he starts recording this track where he's kind of slagging off Michael.
Yeah.
Right? It's called Word to the Bad. Double D on bad. And then they record it and they get T-Boz from TLC to come in and lay down some vocals. And then when the track is established, Jermaine says he recorded a new vocal track which had nothing directed at Michael in it. And then, lo and behold, when it comes on the radio, it has...
a bootleg. Well, there's a bootleg version leaked or something.
You see, this is where I think Jermaine might be stretching the truth. How do you know that he just didn't release the... Because he was angry, and now he feels bad about it. He said, so the one that I never meant to get released came out and was played on the radio, which really upset Michael. Right, of course.
And at that point, though, he couldn't get hold of him ever. If I had to put money on it, I'd say he thoroughly meant it, and he meant it to be heard by Michael. Yeah. Because it's the only way you could communicate to him at the time.
Do you know what I found extraordinary about this? This happened, he recorded this track, because basically Michael Jackson poached his producers and effectively scuppered his career.
And then deffed him out at the same time, didn't answer his calls.
Their mother got them together after that, and Jermaine talks in the book about how bad he felt for betraying Michael. It's like, Jermaine, Michael betrayed you.
Yes.
And you were just a bit angry about it.
It's very similar to how Paul McCartney... I know the actual road, Burnt House Hill in Bermuda, where Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson hired a house and lived in Bermuda together for a bit. Mm-hmm. So he spent quite a bit of time in Bermuda. Nobody even mentions that ever. And when they were there hanging out, they wrote Say, Say, Say and The Girl Is Mine. Mm-hmm. When they were there, the Bermuda Gazette phoned the house and said, would you mind doing a bit of an interview just for our local paper? And they said, yeah. And they said, if you won the lottery, they asked them both if you could have anything you wanted in the world. And Paul said, I would buy my own records back because I don't actually own them. And that's the first time Michael heard that in that interview in that house. And he then bought Paul.
He outbid Paul McCartney for them.
And they were friends. They were really good friends. And they weren't after that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So why Michael's
so he does screw people over.
Yeah, he does,
including his friend and his brother.
Yeah.
So he's pretty hard.
So he's
under this soft exterior.
Yeah. So he does have the capacity to abuse children. Is that what you're saying?
No. I guess don't underestimate the soft exterior.
That's the one thing that Jermaine says in this book about his brother. Everybody thinks he's this shy, soft guy, but when it comes to business and stuff, he's very shrewd. He's very astute, intelligent and confident. Yeah.
And he's fighting a fight and he's trying to prove something. And maybe just fighting a poor boy's plight as well. I don't know, there's a lot there that powers it, isn't there?
I wonder sometimes, because he is such a loner. You know, like you say, he's not happy with himself and he wants to keep distance from people. I wonder sometimes, like, screwing over his brother and screwing over Paul McCartney, who had become a good friend, is just another way of keeping distance from people. Yeah. Just to push them away a bit more.
It certainly works.
Yeah.
Except you can't get rid of family.
No, you can't.
You can really try.
You can't get rid of the Jacksons. There's too many of them.
They persist.
I do get that Jermaine really did a lot of legwork in his relationship with Michael. Like, he'd always go to see him. He was the one always putting the effort in.
Because when he was young, he always had to look after him. He couldn't,
and Michael
bear it if he
him.
didn't see him and check he was all right. He was like a parent.
And I think there's real guilt on Jermaine's part that he left the Jackson 5.
Yeah.
And I think Michael was really upset about that.
He really was.
And then they didn't see each other for a long time. Yeah. And I think that's where it... Plus, do you know what? If they were both in this horrible household and they both grew up with the fear of this father ritually beating them, that bonds you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You do want to look out for each other. And Michael is Jermaine's little brother.
Yeah. Yeah, in a family that big, the older ones are surrogate parents, aren't they? And friends, because they shared rooms.
And protector.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. I think now is the time to talk about the elephant in the room. What I think is amazing is we've got this far through the podcast without... I've had a couple of cheek digs.
Yeah.
But we haven't really addressed Michael's relationship with young children, particularly boys. And I think we have to talk about that. And I have to say, until I wrote this book... How did I write it? What's my name? Jermaine? Until I read it... I was totally of the opinion, he did. There's just too much evidence there to suggest that he was certainly acting inappropriately towards him. But through reading this book, and I have to remember it's written by a very loyal brother, I'm kind of the opinion now that actually it's all completely misunderstood. But at the same time, a grown man should not be befriending 8-year-old boys. And
whilst I stood up for him, I always said at the time, somebody needs to stop him doing it. And because society doesn't understand, they just don't get it, and it's be much better for him just to not do it.
The weird thing is that throughout this book, before Jermaine even approaches talking about Michael's relationship with children, he already sets the scene, even going back to when I think one of the brothers had a baby and they couldn't find Michael.
Reeby's littlest daughter.
Yes, it was Reeby's, and then like the age of 10,
curled around this little kid.
They couldn't find Michael. And he was in the crib with the baby.
Singing to rats. I mean, he loves animals and he loves kids. He's just got an affinity with.
But I don't think that a 10-year-old getting into a crib with a baby is a normal thing to do either. I don't know why that's a sweet thing in the book. I think it's weird. Do you not?
Well, what if you're surrounded by crazy strippers and violence? Something that just seems safe. Yeah, it just seems like a safe, innocent. The only person that's purely innocent that just doesn't see the world, hasn't been tainted yet.
When Jermaine talks about that bit in the book with Michael getting into the crib with the baby, he totally says, "Oh, it's just so pure and innocent. Michael really loves children. That's all there is to it." But no, I read it as this is a little boy who wants to retreat to being a baby because his life is just so crazy at this point.
It's amazing though how many child stars, because he often befriended child stars, whether young or older actually, because he had a shared experience with them. But like he was really good friends with the kid who played Oliver in the West End. And they made friends the rest of their lives.
And Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, a lot of people say, where some people drop them because they get older, if they really were dodgy, but they actually just genuinely form good friendships.
Yeah, no, and I understand that more because they've had unique experiences, and Michael can really help. Yeah. Well, not help them if they don't need help, but he can be a really good friend to this. I get that, and do you know what? Macaulay Culkin and Corey Feldman have both said that Michael Jackson never acted untoward towards them. But there are young boys who have said that he did act untowardly against them. Yeah. Now, full disclosure, when that documentary was out a couple of years ago, Leaving Neverland, I started watching it and I couldn't finish it. I don't want to watch a 4-hour documentary about child abuse. But you did, right? And is that what made you think that perhaps he did abuse? I know you struggle with this.
Yeah, I had to concede that it's very possible because it just seems so believable coming out of their mouths. And it's that sort of thing where I don't feel it's my place that somebody pours their heart out like that. For me, who am I to say you're probably lying? It would be my always go-to thing to believe somebody first. Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't want to, but Jermaine does. He puts a great case towards when he breaks it down. Those very same people, the different things, the money grabbing, the parents who are literally telling them all this stuff.
There are things that I think Jermaine nails in this and really made me think, okay.
Because he's actually quite angry because he's like, this happened, the media did not report that. That's what happened. He's quite angry about it.
But there are also things that Jermaine just doesn't understand. Yeah. And I get that. And I actually, it's when he's talking about this young boy called Wade, who Michael befriended. Yeah, he sounds amazing, by the way. He was taking dance classes. I can't believe you didn't know all this stuff.
Because he had a relationship with Britney. Her choreographer. Before any of this Michael stuff came out, I'd heard of him. Really? He choreographed Britney, and then they were supposed to have had a short fling, and that's what split her and Timberlake up. Oh, no kidding. And Cry Me a River is written about her having a brief thing with him.
With Wade.
And he was going out before with Oh, 'cause it says it in the book.
Who?
Brandy Jackson, which is somebody's daughter, like Tito's
really?
or Jackie's.
Yeah.
So he's kind of choreographer to the Stars Shagger type man.
Yeah.
You know.
And so he's somebody who accused...
him. He's one of the two main people in that documentary.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of hard to think, what are you gaining from this?
So what's his motivation?
Exactly.
Money? Or do you think he's genuinely...
I couldn't work out what his motivation was in that documentary.
Or is his motivation the fact that he was genuinely...
It was really hard to see any
by Michael Jackson.
possible reason to be saying what... Yeah, it was very hard to get past.
Okay. So you believed him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of did. It's really hard not to. If he is making it up, it's genius, very well rehearsed. It's exactly what every step is. What
did he do it when Michael was alive, or is it only since his death?
Yeah.
You see, he's not. It's easier to do it when the person's
they
not here to...
They loved him. It's so confusing. I hate talking about this.
Yeah, no,
this is the worst part of it. But I know
don't
you
think
can't
you
talk
can't
about
talk about him without talking about this.
You can't.
Yeah.
But I've wrestled with this for years.
I know. Jermaine says that he saw Wade and his mum as like a second family, right? And he's also saying that the mother kind of began to trust Michael so much that Wade could stay over the house on his own.
And he stayed at there.
I mean,
I think he fell in love. I always said this at the time. I think he fell in love.
With
Felt
who?
like he was in love with a couple of these boys. Like,
so Michael Jackson's falling in love with young boys.
Had a loving relationship. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was never sure whether it went past that or not. But I felt like he'd sort of fallen in love.
Yeah, I mean, we can't know if it went past it or not unless we choose to believe the victim. And if you do, then it did go past that.
Yeah.
You know what? It's a tough one because the parents are letting their young boys stay at a stranger's house, however much.
But isn't that a little bit like saying you wore a very short skirt out, so then you're going to get raped? I mean, you know,
leaving your child with a stranger? I don't think it's the same.
It's not.
I think when you have a parental responsibility. No, I think they were groomed as much as the children.
Kids have the most amazing time. It's step by step by step, and sometimes it happened over a year or something. I know what you're saying, but I think the most beguiling thing in the world would be Michael Jackson seeming to be besotted with you and your kids and your plight and seeing you and realising...
You would not believe it was
so
happening,
irresistible.
that all of a sudden Michael Jackson was your best friend.
Yeah.
And if Michael Jackson was taking you out and buying you $7,000 dresses, which he was doing to the mum... And he's like, hey, Wade, do you want to sleep over tonight?
Oh, and first he'd let the parents stay as well.
Yeah.
You know, and that would happen for ages. Then he'd say, no, I'll sleep in my room, because in my room I've got all these games. And
Wade was not the only one, right?
There's often a group of them.
And there's this kid called Geordie, right? So Geordie was somebody who Michael Jackson met when his car broke down. And they went to the garage, and the garage owner's wife came in and said, we have this son.
They sound like chances. That sounds like a total setup, that one. I don't believe that one.
No, I don't believe that one. I think they saw Michael Jackson as a meal ticket.
There's definitely a few. I mean, they definitely... Like that open house to the media, it's like, look, this bloke does things that are unconventional. Everyone come forward with your story. Yeah. You know... I
think Geordie enabled it. Yeah. Was he the first one who pressed charges?
It didn't go to court, they paid it off. Yeah. It was a mistake.
But he didn't pay. See, now this is why I thought Michael Jackson was guilty, and I'm not saying that he's not, but the main reason was because he paid Geordie off.
They said he wouldn't allow it to go to court.
Yeah, that's the reason. He didn't pay him off because he was guilty. He paid him off because of the technicality between it being a criminal case and a civil case or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And it was something to stop it. Because Michael wanted it to be a criminal case.
So he could be proved innocent.
So he could be proved innocent, but I think it also meant he could have spent time in jail or something.
Yeah.
And I think the time, what happened...
they refused it, apparently.
Did they? I think there was some... I can't remember that, but I think it was the time the criminal case would have been delayed for a lot longer, and it would have taken longer, and I think it probably didn't fit in with whatever else was going on, so they paid to stop it all from happening. Because, he's a busy man. But from reading this book, and this isn't Jermaine's opinion, this is the facts of what happened.
Yeah, I know,
I now know that he did not pay Geordie off because he was guilty and to get it over and done with quickly. It was more about technicalities with the court case. Okay, so that changes my opinion on that.
Yeah.
And when he talks about Geordie's dad, I mean, he sounds like a blackmailer.
Oh my God, there's another revelation. It said 12 days, I think, or 10 or 12 days or 8 days after Michael Jackson died, he shot himself.
Oh, yeah, he did.
The dad shot himself.
Yeah, but I thought that was a straw. Why would he do that?
Oh, because he knows he destroyed Michael Jackson. He started. You know, there was tapes. Jermaine says there was actual recorded phone conversation where he says, I'm going to bring him down. You wait to see what happens to Michael Jackson. When we launch this, we are going to bring him down. We're going to say all this stuff, and you watch this. It's going to be the end of this man. No one's going to buy his records anymore. And he achieved that. He destroyed him. And when he died, he, within 2 weeks, killed himself. And it was at the end of a chapter and it didn't say any more. I was like, you don't need to say any more.
So do you honestly believe that, because I think somebody who would do that to Michael Jackson wouldn't feel bad about it?
Well, at that point, but if you actually, it might just be all talk. I mean, murderers have regrets, remorse.
Here, you know when I said there are bits things that Jermaine doesn't understand?
Yeah.
There's actually Geordie's mum who had the £7,000 gift certificate from a boutique. But he said that people were accusing Michael of seducing Geordie with all of the gifts and stuff. He says, this is from the book, Jermaine says he didn't just treat the boy Geordie, though. He bought the mother, June, Cartier jewellery, a $7,000 Fred Segal boutique gift certificate, and even allowed her to use his credit card to buy 2 designer handbags. And no one ever accused him of trying to seduce her. Well, actually, that is seducing her. That's grooming.
I thought that as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's actually quite damning, because you get the kids through the parents. This is not looking good.
That's Jermaine with his rose-tinted spectacles on.
Really innocent mind.
Thinking, oh, Michael's just being really kind
to the whole family, but no,
he's
I totally agree with that. Yes. I mean, he's grooming them if he's a paedophile. If he isn't, he's just being lovely to a poor family.
I kind of would like to believe he's being really lovely because he's got more money.
And also because he looked after so many properly sick kids.
Oh my God, I know, right?
And he really did that. Yeah. He genuinely really did that and really cared for people.
Yeah. So did Jimmy Savile.
No, because he didn't really care for any of those. He was really monstrous. He was cold-hearted. He had no care about him at all. Michael absolutely loved these kids and wanted them to do great. I think he crossed the line with maybe 2, might have fallen in love. Wherever that led, I don't know. But I think I'm not excusing, I'm just saying, I think he genuinely absolutely loved kids and found happiness through their happiness and saved a lot of them and cared for them when they were dying and did as much as he could.
Yeah, no, I get all that. I think the sad truth of it all is, and now this is regardless, it almost doesn't matter whether he's guilty of physically abusing children or not, because I think he's going to be forever a thought.
He is.
And the reason it's never going to go away is the fact that he behaved inappropriately with young boys, insofar as that he would have boys who he was not related to. He would befriend strangers' children, bring them to Neverland, and he would say, oh, it's a place where everybody sleeps over, the mum and dad's come. Okay, but at some point you are in bed with the boys on your own. You can't do that.
No, you can't.
And why?
There's a reason you can't, because some people cross the line, and so we have to protect them.
Yeah, and the thing is, if Michael Jackson is so intelligent, if all the Jacksons are intelligent, it's just, if Michael Jackson was a dad on a council estate, and he went to bed with strangers' children, just shared a bed, it was all innocent, there would be pitchforks and burning torches outside of his house. The fact that he's Michael Jackson should not change it. We all think,
too many yes men around him.
But do you know what? It's kind of like, if he's not a paedophile, but he's having accusations of being a paedophile, it's kind of his own fault.
I know that as well. he just didn't see a problem with it, and he told everybody he was doing it.
But he should know, whether he's got a problem with it or not, whether he sees a problem with it or not, he should know how society views that.
Yeah.
And
why?
And it's weird as well that he would even go on. Martin Bashir did a big famous documentary of Michael Jackson. Jermaine accuses Martin Bashir of it being a hatchet job, and showing Michael to be a weirdo who spends time with young boys. But the fact of the matter is, in that interview, Michael Jackson freely offers up the information that he shares his bed with young boys. Yeah,
I often used to think, if there's anything dodgy about that, he wouldn't tell everyone about it.
Yeah, I know. I know, and I kind of get that.
Yeah.
That if he was a problem, why would he admit to it?
Yeah.
But at the same time...
He's trying to make everyone understand. He's like, no, it's like this. We all sleep in the bed. It's so much fun. And he's like, no, it's not like that. It's like this.
Yeah,
you know,
I know, but you just cannot do it, and he should have realised that.
Just facilitated everything because he's pirate treasure.
And here's another thing, right? So let's just, there were a number of young boys and families who brought charges against Michael. Now here's something. This is interesting. So there's a police detective officer called Sneddon, right, who was kind of doggedly pursuing Michael Jackson with the allegations. They searched his house and stuff when he wasn't there. Anyway, listen to this. So this is in the book. By early 1994, and after spending millions of dollars, convening 2 grand juries and talking to more than 150 witnesses, including all of the kids who spent time at Neverland, the LAPD and District Attorney Tom Sneddon conceded there was no case to answer. Unfortunately, Sneddon refused to close the case. It was, he said, suspended, leaving the door open for anyone who came forward in the future. The media wouldn't stop its pursuit. I mean, so 150 witnesses interviewed all the kids who'd been to Neverland. No case. It should have been shut up and forgotten about. But he refused to enter, and the media just had a field day.
He was persecuted at the time. Why I was so upset is because I felt like he'd been persecuted to death, like Jesus. Not comparing to Jesus, but like Jesus. Literally like Jesus.
Literally.
It felt like that. It felt like that to me.
Yeah.
It was so sad.
Yeah.
Just bullied because they couldn't understand him, because he didn't fit into the conventions, because he was probably gay. He was all confused about it. He'd had a terrible childhood. It was conflicting him. So therefore he didn't behave normally. He was like a child trapped, and then because they didn't understand him, they decided to crucify him like they did E.T. or like an alien. It was so like all those things that Michael completely connected with, and it broke my heart.
Going back to Geordie a minute, and his dad who killed himself because he ruined Michael Jackson's life. So Geordie, now under the control of his father, had sworn an affidavit that built a false picture of intimate allegations and descriptions of Michael Jackson's body. So the police got Michael Jackson in, strip searched him, took many photos of his cock and balls from every single angle, because Geordie said that he could describe Michael Jackson's intimate parts. And then after that humiliation, and presumably those photos are still hanging around somewhere in some police. Anyway, it said none of the markings on Michael's body matched the boy's description. In fact, his imagination bore no resemblance to the actuality. Yeah. So he was fucking lying.
Yes.
Put up to it by his dad.
Yeah.
So you see, I feel I'm guilty. All the information because I wasn't a Michael Jackson superfan. No. So I was just getting information from here and there, bits and pieces. And
against him.
Yeah.
It's not...
The cold facts of this case, because again, this isn't Jermaine's opinion.
No, these are the facts. Factual facts, yeah.
Well, then I'm I think Michael Jackson is guilty of being irresponsible and stupidly doing things with young boys he should not have been doing, i.e. getting into bed.
Inappropriate. Actions.
So he is guilty of...
He's definitely, without any doubt, guilty of being inappropriate.
But I have no proof that he's a paedophile.
Doesn't hold a death sentence, that's for sure.
But he definitely acted inappropriately.
Yeah, he acted inappropriately.
And I
for
can't
reasons
yeah.
that you can understand when you read his whole life.
And the industry that he's in, and he knows at this point what the press do to people like him. Even if he had a desire to spend time with young boys and connect with them and stuff, he just should not have done it.
I know that.
Do you know what? It's interesting because, like you're saying, everything that happened to him, his whole childhood, and I wonder if he ever had therapy. I wonder if all of his massive family ever reached out and properly helped him when he needed it, when he was a younger man.
They don't understand because they will never let the word gay into their heads.
Do you think this whole thing is due to Michael Jackson being closet
and bottling
homosexual?
it up? Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
And because they will never ever concede to that at all. They can't help him.
Yeah.
Because they're not connecting with him properly.
Yeah.
Okay, Tommy Motorola. Yeah. Otherwise known as
Tommy Motola.
Something
Motorola.
Like that.
Let's just call him Motorola. He's come up before in our Mariah Carey episode.
He kept her prisoner in Prisoner of Love.
Yes. So he's like the big CEO of Sony Records, who Michael Jackson is leaving, and they're not happy about it. But Michael Jackson owns like half of the Sony catalogue at this point.
Not happy about that. Actually, that's the ultimate thing that they might have tried to kill him for almost.
It's so weird that how naive I am about this industry.
Yeah.
That people actually would be willing, when that much is at stake.
That's right.
Like half of the Sony catalogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would kill somebody to get, because that's billions of pounds.
Who was that blonde woman who married an old man who died?
Anna Nicole Smith.
Yes, and then they went after her and they killed her son.
Oh my God.
You know, people will kill people for money. And 300 million back catalogue of the greatest songs ever written. It's well worth going after.
It's a pirate treasure.
It is.
Just never win the lottery. Yeah, cursed. Never be successful. No. Somebody will come after you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so after 9/11...
That'll be why we're not going to be successful.
When Michael Jackson is coming out of his Sony contract, 9/11 happens and he wants to record a song, you know, to raise money and stuff. And it's actually a re-recording of a song he did after the LA riots called What More Can I Give? Anyway, he did a new version and he got Celine Dion, Gloria Estefan, Beyonce, Mariah Carey and Usher in on it. They recorded the song and it got radio airplay, but Sony didn't put any welly behind it.
Yep.
They didn't release it. And Michael is like, well, that's because they don't want me to be successful now because I'm on the way out. And I'm like, now I've read Mariah Carey's book. No, it's because Mariah Carey's on it.
He wanted to crush her.
He was crushing Mariah's career at that moment.
Exactly.
After 9/11.
Right when she was having a breakdown.
Yep. This was not because they didn't want Michael Jackson. Well, it might have been a bit of that, but it was more to do with Mariah.
Yeah, and also we know that man's an absolute asshole.
God, a real
so
asshole.
If he's arguing with Michael Jackson in any way and pissed off because he cancelled his tour...
They didn't promote that either, did they?
No. If he's in any way arguing with him, he's going to ruin his life, same as he ruined Mariah's, because he's an asshole.
Yeah. What I find really amazing about that Invincible album, because it kind of slipped by the wayside for me. I know the big albums. I had no reason to believe that Invincible is not a good album, but it didn't perform very well. And Michael said it's because Sony didn't put any money behind it, and also they released the weakest tracks as singles. Yeah. And he couldn't work out why there were a couple of proper storming bops on there and they never released them as singles. They wanted that album to fail because they didn't want Michael Jackson to make any money. They didn't want him any tour revenue, any royalties, because they wanted to force him into a position
where he could go bankrupt and then they could take back their assets.
Half the Sony.
And then he said, oh guys, there's loads of legal stuff in this book, which is fascinating. They uncovered, and imagine the fees just paying lawyers all the time. They uncovered evidence that Sony were making people sue Michael Jackson. So he had to spend all his money on counteracting these lawsuits, just also to cripple him. And then everyone was coming after him at once.
so they could get their hands on that very lucrative song copyright and rights that he had. He had a huge amount of songs and copyright, and they wanted to get their hands on it. It's so underhand.
Hounding him.
It's gangsters.
Every angle.
Yeah.
And then they'll be controlling the media, keeping those stories flowing all the time.
And they were trying everything to ruin him, to bankrupt him, so he would have to sell them.
And he was saying, they're after me, they're trying to get me.
But then it was Jermaine, wasn't it, who then got hold of these mega rich guys, and were they in Dubai? Tomei or whatever.
But it's interesting because years later, not so long ago, Janet married a Bahrainian oil-rich man, and it makes me realise that they've been going out there as a family. Obviously, they've got all these connections. I didn't realise he was in the Middle East, but that's where he did spend a lot of time there because he said he fell out of love with America.
Yeah.
And then the Arabs looked after him and were really generous, and then they ended up suing him. Oh, it's just such a mess.
The thing that I found so weird is that he's in this position of where he needs money, and all of a sudden they're just kind of making friends and doing business with people they barely know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's true.
And they did, and it didn't work out.
And also, Jermaine had sorted out that contract. Not very well.
Did you know the accident with the hydraulic lift on tour?
No, never heard of that. So, I've never ever heard about that, and I read everything.
So do you think it's true?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think it's true.
Yeah.
So
he carried on singing and did another song afterwards, obviously in shock. That definitely happens.
So when Michael Jackson was on tour, he was on a hydraulic lift singing.
Like a bridge.
Right.
It sounded like... I can picture that on a stage.
And then it failed and it dropped very, very quickly.
Like 4 floors or something.
Yeah, 4 stories it said. So he basically fell 4 stories. He held onto the railing.
Yeah, and carried on singing. The bloke flipped a switch to stop it. So it said he landed at like parachute dropping.
Wow.
Which is
onto
really
a concrete
hitting
floor.
The ground. Yeah, which basically fucked his back for the rest of his life.
That must have
back
hurt
pain
so
for the
much.
rest of his life.
The show must go on.
And he carried on. Came off the bridge and did another song.
Yeah.
Came off stage and collapsed.
But that's when he really started getting pain that needed to be dealt with, right? So he was more dependent on painkillers and stuff at that point. Yeah. This is shocking that because he had trouble sleeping after performing, and obviously you need to sleep when you're exerting that much energy, but he was so high on adrenaline after a show.
You're clever like Prince, you'd do an after show party.
His doctor would anaesthetise him so he would get a good night's sleep. Yeah. I've never heard of anybody doing that before.
No.
I mean, it sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it does.
That I find it so weird that a doctor would even do that to you just so you could get some sleep. But again, it's having that kind of money, isn't it? It's
lawless. It's the same way you can buy giraffes and a tiger and this and that and stick it in your garden. I'm sure you can't just do that. Mind you, if you've got money, you can just do anything.
So he's touring and he's injured and he's on painkillers and stuff. Is this after when he's with the Bahrainian guys? They need money, so the obvious way that Michael Jackson can make serious money, well, any music artist these days, you don't really make it through record sales anymore thanks to Spotify and stuff. The only way you make money is by going touring.
The big lump sum that was going to pull him out of it was that final tour.
So he did the This Is It tour. Oh my God, reading about those rehearsals was so upsetting.
And it's crazy because I had a ticket. And because I had that ticket, all the media was reporting that he was frail and he was turning up late for rehearsals. For once, those stories were true. Mm-hmm. But because I had a ticket, they were obviously worried that everyone was going to start trying to get their money back. Because I was getting constant emails almost daily saying Michael Jackson is doing amazing at the moment. He's rehearsing. This show's going to be amazing. Here's a picture of the set. This is going great. The choreography's amazing. You're going to love this show. Boom, he's dead. And because I was getting that extra information, I didn't see it coming.
So it was a real shock.
Oh, fucking hell, it was an absolute punch in the gut.
You know, this is interesting as well, because when they were, when he signed up for that tour, it said the only thing Michael complained about was that he signed up to do 10 shows.
Yeah, only. They added 40.
They added 40 more
That's not
dates.
adding 5 more.
Yeah.
That's insane without...
They sold out within 5 hours.
I know, yeah.
Damn. Michael said no one had checked with him first. It did him in ultimately, didn't it?
Something did. That book very much definitely says that he's not clear at all what happened in that month. It could have been the pressure, but was it been given drugs? It says that they're poisoning him. He's poisoning his brain. When they told him all the symptoms, he's freezing cold. And the doctor said his brain's been poisoned or something. Yeah. So it wasn't that killed him. It was
the exertion.
Something.
It was the drugs.
Well, it's uncertain, and they obviously, when he wrote this book, they had no closure at all. They just didn't know.
But the toxicology report said that he had the level of the anaesthetic was high.
All through him, yeah.
So his doctor probably was just doing it too much for too long because he couldn't
that's
sleep.
why he went to prison for it, because he actually did go to actual prison.
He go to prison?
Yeah, I think he's out now.
I didn't know that.
For some years.
So you're thinking, if Michael initially needed that anaesthesia to sleep after touring, then if he's doing these grueling rehearsals for this new tour, he's probably needing it.
The inquiry was focusing on what happened that day.
Right.
Like what was administered to him in that moment.
Yes.
But what the inquiry should have focused on is what went wrong in that whole month when he was clearly deteriorating massively.
Yeah.
And what caused that deterioration to lead to that? What was happening to him in that month? What was being administered in that month? It wasn't just the final blow, was it? It was clearly deteriorating rapidly. He lost a huge amount of weight from when they saw him to when they saw him dead. Mm-hmm. So that's the investigation. It seems like he was just coming up against walls. No one would talk to him, probably for legal reasons. And the family still 2 years on hadn't got any sort of closure as to how he'd even got that weak by that fatal dose. Could it have been the pressure? Could it have been the constant anaesthetic?
Yeah, a build-up in his body.
That.
Yeah, so it's not one dose, it's accumulation of all of them.
They didn't get answers, and I'm wondering, we should probably now Google...
and see if anything new was...
To see, when that doctor went to prison, what it exactly was. I'd have read it at the time, but I can't remember now. But even then, I don't feel it was conclusive.
Shall I tell you the saddest line in this book? Yeah. I think there's a lot of sadness in this book, actually.
Yeah.
So this is during the This Is It rehearsal. So this is the last week of Michael Jackson's life. He said, "No one was giving Michael the kid glove treatment. Instead, I know that he felt belittled on several occasions. He was also yelled at, as witnessed by people who were there. On one occasion, he deliberately spoke into his mic as he walked off stage. I just want someone to be nice to me today." Oh my God, that's what. And then it says, to make it worse, a voice from the floor yelled back, "If we could just have a coherent person here today."
Fucking hell.
I mean, he was just a show pony at this point.
Yeah.
He's not a human being. They don't care about him.
He's not an actual genius legend.
They want to get their 50 dates out of him, and he's exhausted and he's ill and he's not, up to speed in rehearsals, and they're all yelling at him.
Yeah. And it said that This Is It was well edited to show the best bits. And I knew that. I sensed it. Because even when he pulls it out of the bag and you can see everyone applauding him, you can see they're concerned. You can see it in their faces. Right. And you can tell how weak he is. You can just see it. And they said that the last 2 days when he pulled it together was the ones that were in the film. You're literally watching the last 2 days of his life. I didn't know that.
It's just that horrible Hollywood story of somebody becoming a star and then being ruined by it. The
respect he got, which they show in that film, was from all the dancers. Right. All of his dancers were They loved. He was their god. So at least he had it from them in his last days. Thank God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird. This book has changed my opinion on Michael Jackson, I have to say, even though I'm fully aware it's written by a very loyal, lovely brother. Right. But there's facts in it.
There are loads of facts.
Yeah.
But also the fact that in that last month, nobody phoned them. He couldn't work out why nobody phoned the family. What they didn't realise that he's Michael Jackson's star, but he was part of a clan.
Yeah.
And it had just been severed by Michael, I'm sure. But But actually, they were the only people who really would have looked out for him, who really knew him.
Yeah.
Well, mostly knew him. Knew the part that mattered, the proper soul of the man, and would have done anything to help him. And nobody else. Mind you, there's a lot of people around, like the makeup woman and all those people who were just saying, please help him, and no one was doing it.
It's because they want the money. They want the huge amount of money he was about to generate.
If he dies, they can get insurance from it.
So they win either way.
I thought that at the time. I thought that they'd put so much money on it, and he was getting so frail, quite clearly. Yeah, that if he died, they could collect insurance. Whereas if he lived and did it but messed it up or only went on for 10 minutes, they'd have to give everyone their money back, and they were financially a lot better off if he died. Wow. I thought that at the time.
Did you?
Yeah. I felt like it was a bit of a lazy die, like he'd been hounded to his death from everybody.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think that anyway. I believe that if he didn't have his level of fame, he would still. If fame is just this weird thing that ruins people, isn't it? Like mega fame.
Yeah, and wealth.
Yeah. Oh, we got all the way through this and we never talked about Lisa Marie Presley.
He married Lisa Marie Presley. He became Elvis's son-in-law.
Didn't last that long though.
No, it really didn't.
But I totally get what they have in common.
Yeah, I do too.
They totally, one of two of the few people who understand what fame at that level is like. Yeah, and I
watched all the interviews with Lisa Marie at the time, and she said at one point, like the aura around her dad, he was so powerful. He had this aura around him that you knew in the presence of some amazing person, a charisma. And she said she never felt that from anyone until she met Michael Jackson. And it was that same feeling.
See, fame ruined her dad.
Yeah, it did.
Fame ruined Michael Jackson.
Well, yeah, money. Yeah. He was murdered in pursuit of the treasure. Again.
Yeah.
It's as good as murder, isn't it?
They treated his death as a homicide, it says in the book.
Did they?
Hang on, look, it's here.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you meant Elvis then.
No, sorry.
Because that should be, really. Because Colonel Tom Parker as good as murdered him.
Oh, yeah, but we're talking about...
AEG as good as murdered Michael Jackson, I'm now thinking.
No, but I know what you're saying, but it actually says, as a family... this is the last chapter of the book. It says, as a family and for peace of mind, we would like to know who else, if anyone, entered and left the house on the night of Michael's death. But although the LAPD are treating his death as a homicide, its investigators decided to retain only the 4 minutes of CCTV footage showing Dr. Conrad Murray's expected arrival. So they're treating it as homicide because the doctor went in and administered too much anaesthetic. Is that right? And he's the guy who went to prison but is out now. So
but they erased the rest of the CCTV.
Yeah.
Which is insanely suspicious.
Oh, yes, look, it's hard for us to understand.
Evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, the footage had been erased. Yeah. Why would it be wiped? So they have the 4 minutes of the doctor going in and out. That's it,
and no
but weirdly the rest of it has been erased.
So they don't know who else went in.
So why would they have done that? But this book doesn't show any suggestion of who the other person or people might be.
That's why he's asking. That's actually a cry for information in a book.
Gosh, well, that's a mystery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a bolt out of the blue at the end.
It's similar to Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Because the evidence, really, that Marilyn Monroe was murdered is in the lack of evidence, is in the missing evidence. Because everything got removed. All the neighbours, for example, reported they heard a helicopter landing in the garden. All of them.
Okay, yeah.
And then 24 hours later, all of them retracted those statements. Because they were visited.
Right.
And, I mean, it was government. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a huge amount about her murder. The ambulance records were disappeared. And the photographic evidence was disappeared. And everything along the way, basically, was removed. Because the government, Kennedy's cousin was in charge of the media. They had another cousin in the police. They had everyone in key places. And
what the difference?
The evidence is there was no evidence.
What's interesting about that, though, is we know all the conspiracies around Marilyn Monroe's death. They're documented. You know what? Same with Diana. You know,
you'll have to look into it because the media won't tell you.
But there's nothing about Michael Jackson's been dead a few years now. Yeah. I've not heard it. This is new to me. That it says it makes us wonder if every stone had been turned in LAPD's investigation. It is so far concentrated on one doctor and one night. I guess time will tell, but our only hope is that ultimately justice doesn't fail Michael, like everybody else seems to have done. Oh, I hope Jermaine doesn't feel like he failed Michael. It's a difficult relationship, isn't it, being a brother to the most famous man on earth?
Yeah.
But, so this is news to me that there might be more to Michael Jackson's death.
Yeah.
I mean, but if the toxicology said, oh, so then by this train of thought, that toxicology report could be fake.
Yeah, and he looked like a scapegoat. I have to say that, doctor.
Really?
I mean, just, you know, when you just your instinct, I've got nothing else to go on. Somebody's put in there, he's like the assassin they've paid or something. I don't know.
I wonder if, you know how much of a shock Michael Jackson's death was, especially to his family. I think it's quite a natural reaction to not believe what you're told about when somebody young dies before their time.
Yeah.
You know, oh, it's here. The doctor administered too much anaesthetic. No, we don't believe that. Who else was involved? Come on. It's like, well, actually, nobody was. Nothing else happened. That's just, and it's hard for him to accept.
Even if he did, was it on anyone's orders?
Shit.
I mean, like an assassin, a hired...
Do you know what? I totally get that all of those people who held the money, it was better that Michael Jackson died. It just was.
Well, not for him.
No, I know, not for his family, not for you.
No.
Not for all the people who had a ticket
like, if you
to the
said
show.
to me, would you accept no more music, no more any performance for Michael, but he was alive and happy somewhere? Of course I'd take that. Yeah. Of course I would.
Yeah, he's got an amazing body of work that I can listen to again now because I've decided he's not a paedophile anymore. Yeah. So how do you feel about it all now you've finished reading the book?
I'm very, very, very relieved with your opinion because I wasn't sure what you were going to say. I was really worried that you were going to massively attack him for being a paedophile because I'm scared of having to defend that when I can't help but be caught up emotionally with the man.
I think you possibly accuse Michael Jackson of being a paedophile more than I do now.
Yeah, I know. I almost want to be given permission to doubt it. I'd love to be given permission to doubt it.
I think Jermaine's totally given you that.
Yeah, I know, but I doubt... I'm the same as you. I know that he's a loving brother, and I know because they don't accept the gay angle of him at all.
Not even meant.
That they can't possibly know the real him or really know what they're talking about. But they do know the real him as well. Because he loved children. He wasn't... It's... Christ, I don't know. I've said it before though, right? Okay, Jimmy Savile, massive attacking paedophile, and Gary Glitter, massive paedophile. You raid these people's houses, they've got tons of it on the internet, they've got evidence everywhere. There's so many cases, it's irrefutable. You do the same to Michael Jackson, there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing in the house, there's nothing in the drawers, there's nothing in the statements from anybody, there's no evidence. And so you compare that with that.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
And after a massive investigation, there was no case to be found.
Yeah, all 14 counts.
Yeah.
Not guilty. With the FBI, with the LAPD, with everybody getting evidence, with child psychology, with everything. Nothing. And that's why I stuck by him so long.
Do you know what's interesting about you saying that they don't play Michael Jackson on the radio as much anymore, etc.?
No, they really don't.
And they don't play Gary Glitter at all.
No.
On Spotify, Gary Glitter, 607,000 monthly listeners. So there is still plenty of people.
607,000 isn't very much.
607,000 is loads. That's more than half a million in a month.
Oh, all right, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, that's how many people. Yeah, do you know what?
Let's keep it separate.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of it, because I finished the book today, and part of me was thinking, wouldn't it be? Do you know? I'd really love if those boys on that documentary, men, before I died, if they just came forward and said, "I made this up," and just
how could they now? Then?
I'd love it if that happened. I sort of want to... Today I was thinking I want to go to them and just look them in the eye and go, did you make this up? I was just like... I can't though. I wouldn't do it to a woman who claimed rape and went into detail about it. I can't. I have to allow them. I have to. You've got... Oh, God.
Do you know what? Another thing that always made me doubt my own accusations to Michael Jackson was the fact that Macaulay Culkin and Corey Feldman both said no. He never
I know.
acted untoward towards
and
us.
they stayed friends.
Yeah.
Which is
And they
counts for a
defend
lot.
him to the day. Yeah, it really counts for a lot. All right, so I feel that I can listen to Michael Jackson again.
I'm really pleased.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, very pleased. And I need to give the Invincible album one more try. I didn't get massively inspired by any of his later work.
I do find sometimes that there's artists I like and they bring an album out, don't get into it at all. And then like 10 years later, I'll discover it. And it's like, oh my God, I really like it.
Yeah, I'm going to give it another try. But Off the Wall, can't beat it. Beat it.